scream, heavy in the streets.
We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood. We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood.
Good rich.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And I'm Ethan, and this evening I have some appetizers for you. And I'm sure for some of you that's a welcome sight. And on this podcast, I have UFC 282 prediction show. And that would be Jan Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev, and that's taking place December 10th, 2022 at T-Mobile Arena, and that is Paradise, Nevada, United States. And I'm pretty sure that would be taking place 9 p.m. Eastern time, or maybe that's. Yeah, that would actually, that's probably 10 p.m. Eastern time, 9 p.m. Central time, and I'm gonna be doing predictions picks just for the main card. If you know by now, I just do the picks for the main card. So let's get into that right now. So can I get a menu? And the first fight on the card is a featherweight matchup between Bryce Mitchell and Ilia Topuria, and this is just kind of a funny match because it involves Ilia Topuria, because during like the press conference between Ilia Topuria was involved in, he got into a little bit of a spat with someone that he wasn't even involved with. It wasn't with his opponent, Bryce Mitchell. It was with Paddy Pimblett, actually. So they just started arguing for some reason, and they're not even in the same weight division. So that was just kind of comical. They said like, "Oh, come on, I'll fight you right here." And it's just kind of like the whole Conor McGregor thing. Paddy Pimblett called him a little thought. I was like, you ain't gonna do nothing. You ain't gonna do nothing. And that, I guess he's from London. I guess he's not Irish like he's not an Irishman like Conor McGregor. And it was just kind of funny how he got security guards coming in, then the whole hold me back, bro, hold me back, even though it's like clearly they're not gonna do anything. So the featherweights, they're 145, and Paddy Pimblett is a lightweight, so he's 155. So they're not even in the same weight class. So I don't even know what even the connection between those two are. They're not even in the same weight class. And he's followed Paddy Pimblett on his Twitter or his Instagram or anything. I haven't at all, but I've seen things on Facebook where he balloons up to like 185 pounds during his in between fight camps. So I don't know how much longer he'll be fighting at lightweight. So he definitely couldn't make featherweight at 145. But that was just kind of funny how they got into it at the pre-fight press conference. Even that was even pre-weigh-in press conference. So I urge you to go watch that if you want to see something funny. But anyways, this featherweight match, the first fight on the main card, is a very interesting fight because both of these fighters are actually undefeated. So this main card, this UFC, this is the last pay-per-view of 2022. I wouldn't say it's a stacked card, mostly because this was supposed to be headlined by a rematch of Glover Teixeira and Yuri Um, Prohaschek, after they had that crazy title match where Glover lost his belt to Yuri Prohaschek. Uh, but I guess Yuri got injured and the fight was called off. So now they're having uh, an interim bout between Jan Blachowicz and Magomed Ankalaev. So, and that's just the only title match, just the interim title match on this card. So there's not another title match on this card, and really there's no real big names on this card. I guess some people think Paddy Pimblin's kind of a rising star, but I don't really look at him like that. I don't really look at these uh, cash cow type of uh, fighters like that. I don't really look at those guys like that, the guys that Dana White loves so much. But anyways, I'm just rambling on. But anyways, let's try to get into this first fight. I could talk all day about that kind of stuff. But anyways, let's look at Bryce Mitchell here first. Uh, so let's just kind of look at his record because it's impressive. It's impressive that the first fight on this card is two undefeated fighters. Uh, so he's a 15-0, and uh, 9 of them are by submission, and six are by decision, and obviously 0 losses. And he has 6 fights in the UFC already. 6 fights in the UFC. 5 of them are by decision, and the one submission that he has, which was 4 fights ago, which would have been on December 7th, 2019, which came in the first round, 4 minutes and 20 seconds of the first round, was actually by Twister, which not very many people, not very many fighters have, which was against Matt Silas. Um, uh, not many fighters have finished fights by that submission by Twister. I think only 2 or 3 other fighters have actually finished a fight by Twister, so that's very impressive. But all of his other fights have come by decision, so that's not overly impressive. But it seems like he's either going to finish the fight by decision or get wins by submission. So it sounds like, just going off of that, he's kind of a submission specialist. He's a ground fighter, and he even has some exhibitions on his record as well, where he fought and tough. He has 1 win by decision, and he actually does have a loss on his career, but it's exhibition, so it doesn't really count as on his professional record. And he got submitted rear naked choke by Brad Katana. Uh, that was a rear naked choke. So that's a pretty impressive record there. But let's go look at Ilya Tapora, who was really feeling himself against Paddy Pimblin during that pre-weigh-in press conference. His record is pretty impressive as well. He has had 12 matches, 12 wins, but he has a pretty more mixed way of getting these wins. It's more more spread out how he's getting these wins, and so he has four knockouts, set, seven submissions, and one decision. So he's a finisher. He doesn't take fights the decision. Like he's going to finish you. Not wouldn't call Bryce Mitchell boring, but you definitely can't call Ilya Tapora boring because his fights don't go to decisions. He has a lot more ways of finishing fights because he can knock you out, he can submit you, and he doesn't have as many fights in the UFC as Bryce Mitchell. He only has four to Bryce Mitchell's six, but in the last three of the four fights that he has in the UFC, they've all come by knockout, and two of them have come in the first round. So I think over the last couple fights in his career, he's kind of come a stand-up fighter. He does have his black belt in jiu-jitsu, so he has a ground game as well because he actually has more submissions than knockouts. But I think just going off of the kind of the streak that he has of getting knockouts, I think that kind of shows that he has knockout power. I think I'm going to go with Ilya Tapora to get maybe a knockout in this fight because he can knock you out, he can submit you, and maybe his mind's a little off thinking about Paddy Pimblin, but the odds of him actually getting a fight with him are probably slim to none. But I think I'm going to go with Ilya Tapora in here to maybe get a knockout in the second round over Bryce Mitchell. So with the first fight on the card, the featherweight match between Bryce Mitchell and Ilya Tapora, I'm going with Tapora to win maybe by knockout in the second round. On to the second fight between Darren Till and Drukakis Duplessis. This was a interesting build up to this fight. I think I just saw like little snippets where Darren Till was talking about like maybe pulling out of this fight due to like getting injuries in his camps, like maybe like a severe eye poke like leading up to it, and he was thinking about different ways of like pulling out of this fight, and then seeing on social media fans and media people like making fun of him and stuff before that. I didn't really divulge that deep into it, but that seemed kind of interesting to me. I don't know, that was, I don't know, that was kind of funny to me. I didn't really, I don't know, I didn't divulge that deep into that. That seemed kind of funny. That seemed odd that people were ripping such a decorated veteran in the sport so much just because he came out about stuff that happened to him in his training camp leading up to this. But I don't know. It's always funny when you see fighters get ripped for being honest about stuff that happened to them leading up to it. But I don't know, stuff that happens on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram is always entertaining. There's never a dull moment on social media, that's for sure. But let's look at Dracus Duplessis real quick because he had, once again, they have these young and up and coming fighters that are just impressive. You can definitely say that about the UFC. They're not lacking in talent at all, and he's I would say that he is, once again, they have these killers that can beat you in such a variable ways, just multi-faceted ways, because this guy, once again, this guy has 19 fights, 17 wins, only 2 losses, and yeah, seven of out of 17 of those wins, 7 of them are by knockout, 9 of those are by submission, and only one of those are by by decision or is by decision. So he's very similar to Ilya Tapora. Like he's not a boring fighter. If he's gonna win, he's gonna finish you. And then he has 2 losses, and both of those are by finish. So if this fight is gonna happen, he's either gonna submit you or get knocked out or submit you, or he's going to get knocked out or get submitted. That's just how this fight's going to go. This is going to be an entertaining fight no matter what. So let's kind of look at his history. And he's a young fighter for UFC. He's only had 3 fights so far, but they're impressive. His last fight was against Brad Tavares, and it was a decision. But the other 2 previous fights to that were both knockouts. So I would say in his previous fights to that were outside the UFC, one was by submission, guillotine choke, and the 2 previous ones to that was a TKO punches, and then he lost by KO, and then another was TKO punches. So I would say he's just in his most recent fights there, I would say he's more of a stand-up fighter, knockout artist, and for his like main ranking, he has a 2nd-degree black belt in kickboxing. So he's dangerous with those 7 knockouts, but he has more submissions than knockouts. But man, it seems like he's knocking people out, KOs and TKOing people more recently than getting submissions. Darren Till, man, it seems Darren Till, he's got a birthday coming up on the 24th. He's only 29 years old. It seems like he's been around forever for some reason, and I don't know why. He still has an impressive record as himself. He has 23 total fights, 18 wins, 10 by knockout, 2 by decisions, or two by submission, 6 by decision. Only 4 losses himself, 1 by knockout, 2 by submissions, and 1 by decision, and 1 draw. But he's kind of fallen on hard times a little bit here. 4 of his last 5 have been losses, and his last 2 have been losses, but they've been against some pretty high-level fighters, and Derek Brunson and Rob Whitaker, former champion Rob Whitaker. So, I mean, man, it's hard to pick someone that's lost that many fights. And then the other 2 losses have been Jorge Masvidal and Tyron Woodley, another former champion. And in that fight, it was for the welterweight championship. So, man, that's just it's tough to pick a guy that's but this is that was for the welterweight championship. This is a middleweight fight. This is 185. That was 170. But man, just because he's kind of on a rough stretch here, I think I'm gonna have to go for Dracus du Plessis in this fight. So to be honest, I would say this is probably gonna be by knockout as well. See, look at how he's been losing these. He's been losing by KO and submission in these fights as well. Been KO'd and submitted twice in those previous losses. So I would say Dracus du Plessis probably gets the finish. I don't know if he gets the KO or submission, but just with Dracus du Plessis' history, I'd say he probably KOs or submits Darren Till in this fight. So in this second fight, the middleweight fight between Darren Till and Dracus du Plessis, I'm gonna pick Dracus du Plessis to finish Darren Till. Uh, let's just say in the second round, Dracus du Plessis finishes Darren Till. Uh, so in the third match fight on the third fight on the main card, we have a catchweight 180 between Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Alex Monroe, and we'll just look at Santiago Ponzinibbio first. And I think the main reason this is a catchweight is because it was originally supposed to be a match between Robbie Lawler and Santiago Ponzinibbio at welterweight, but I think Robbie Lawler got hurt, so Alex Marrero came in to save the day at the last second. Uh, uh, Santiago Ponzinibbio, he's an older fighter. He has a long, lot of fights on his career, but he's an older fighter. He's 36 years old and has a 34 career fights, 28 wins, 15 by knockout. He's a knockout artist. 6 by submission, 7 by decision. He has an impressive win-loss record, only 6 losses, 3 by decision. But he's kind of like Darren Till. He's kind of fallen on hard times. He's lost 3 of his last 4. He lost his last two have been kind of rough luck. His last 2 because they've both been split decision, but then his the third loss was a KO. Got knocked out in the first round. That was back on January 16th, 2021. So, but he's definitely a knockout artist. With those 15 knockouts over the course of his career. That one loss in the middle of those, that one win in the middle of those 3 losses was a decision win. But he's an older fighter. Hard to know when older fighters like that, when it's time to hang it up with those type of fighters. Alex Moreno, uh, Alex Morano, the Great White. He's not really a young and up and coming fighter either. He's 32 years old, and he's got a lot of fights as well. He's got 32 fights with 22 wins, 6 by knockout, 6 submissions, 9 decisions, 1 disqualification. But he's got quite a few losses, 7 losses, 2 by knockout, 5 by decisions. But he's on a little bit of a win streak. He's on a 4-fight win streak, four by decisions, one by TKO. This is uh, kind of a difficult fight to pick here, honestly. This is kind of uh, a throwaway pick for me a little bit. I think I'm just going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to pick Santiago Ponzinibbio for the knockout here, because Alex Morano is kind of stepping in here short notice to save the day here. So he doesn't have a full camp. He's not sure how good a shape he is because it's a catch weight. I'm going to pick Santiago Ponzinibbio to maybe get the knockout, seeing how that's what he is. I'm going to go with Santiago Ponzinibbio to get the knockout for this one. And so on to the co-main event. We have a lightweight bout between Paddy Pimblett, another cash cow, one of Dana White's cash cows, versus Jared Gordon. And that was a interesting side note story about him that I read about his whole drug hab story and his getting sexually assaulted by like a camp counselor, a Boy Scout counselor. So he has an interesting background story. And then I guess Paddy Pimblett, after his last fight, he talked about the whole suicide hotline thing. One of his friends that committed suicide. So both of these guys are really fighting for people that are struggling, either with addiction or suicide. So they're both personally don't know them personally, but they seem like good guys. Even though Paddy Pimblett, he probably gets under a lot of people's skin, but I don't know if Jared Gordon is if he's a can, if he's kind of being a jag, kind of being still, guys are kind of still maybe being fed to Paddy Pimblett or not. Not sure about that or not, whether that's the case or not still. But Jared Gordon, he has 24 fights on his career, 19 wins, 6 by knockout, 2 by submission, 11 decisions. He has 5 losses, 4 by knockout, and 1 by submission. And I'm really circling that 4 by knockout. I think that's almost like maybe set up perfectly for Paddy Pimblett to knock him out. Like I think that's really set up perfectly for Paddy Pimblett. And even this here, like he's won 4 of his last 5, but 2 fights ago he got beat by Grant Dawson by submission rear naked choke. Like some of Paddy Pimblett's wins have become by rear naked choke, and that was April 30th, 2022. So that was this year. Like that's set up perfectly for Paddy Pimblett as well to beat him by rear naked choke again. So I don't know. It seems like he's almost being fed to Paddy Pimblett, but he's also a tough guy. He's fought. He's had a lot of fights in the UFC as well. He's had 11 fights in the UFC. So he's a UFC veteran. That's for sure. He's been fighting in the UFC since 2017, since June 25th, 2017. And obviously, he's a tough guy. He's had a tough life going through being sexually assaulted as a kid and having drug addiction and drug overdoses and stuff like that. So fighting is probably nothing to him, but the way things are set up uh, for Patty Pimblin, these things are set up for him to succeed. And Patty Pimblin, people that follow him probably know pretty much everything about him for the most part, but we'll go run through it real quick. He has 22 fights in his career, 19 wins, 6 by knockout, 9 by submission, 4 by decision, 3 losses, 1 by submission, 2 by decision, and he's on 5-fight win streak. He's had 3 fights in the UFC, 1 by KO and 2 by submission. And his two recent fights have both been, like I said, rear naked choke. So Jared Gordon's most recent loss was by rear naked choke. So that adds up perfectly for Patty Pimblin to beat him. And he also KO'd someone, knocked out someone, and Jared Gordon's been knocked out 4 times. So it makes that really hard to pick Jared Gordon. So just because of that, I'm picking Patty Pimblin to probably win this. I would say probably by rear naked choke. So I'm with just because of that, I'm picking Patty Pimblin to win this fight. And I would say probably by rear naked choke. So in this co-main event, I'm picking Patty Pimblin to win by rear naked choke. Okay, on to the light heavyweight interim title match. Title match between Jan Blachowicz and Magomed Ankalaev. Let's go over Jan Blachowicz. We have who's trying to retain his not trying to retain it, but he's trying to get it back. And main thing with Jan Blachowicz is his age. You know, that's kind of something that kind of stood out with Glover Teixeira as well, because he's like 40 years old as well, but Jan is 30 years old, 39 years old. February 24th, he'll be 40 years old, and so he's only had like 1 fight since he lost to Glover Teixeira, and I think that fight Alexander Rockage was the fight that he had. That was May 14th, 2022. And I think for the most part, I can't really remember that fight too well. I think for the most part he was winning that fight, but the fight ended at 3 minutes, and in round 3 at 1 minute and 11 seconds. But Rockage blew his knee out. So that was a 5-round fight. So it's hard to say how the fight would have actually ended, you know. So he doesn't really have like an actual like get back fight, you know, to really say like he really earned this interim title fight, you know. So, you know, it's hard to say that he really deserves this fight as much as Magomed Ankalaev, you know, and the fact that he's as old as he is, and you know, like, and he never like defended the belt against like an actual light heavyweight. Like he defended the belt against Israel Adonijay, but he beat Dominic Reyes for the belt. Okay, and, and it was a vacant belt because of John Jones, and then he defended it against the middleweight, and then he lost it against Glover Teixeira, and then his next fight was won due to technicality, a blown out knee. But anyways, he has 38 fights, has an impressive record with 9 knockout wins, uh, 9 submission wins, and 11 wins by decision. But he has 9 losses, 2 by knockout, 2 by submission, and 5 by decision. And for the most part, he's a knockout artist. Recently, in recent memory, he's a knockout artist, but he can also wrestle. He can also wrestle and submit you. That's how he beat Israel Zonage. He manhandled him for the majority of that fight. So he can bully you too. He's a very big light heavyweight, but uh, to I would definitely say Megamod Ankalaev are in this fight more than the two. If I was to really say who really deserves this fight, and Megamod Ankalaev has a very impressive record. He's won. He's on a 9 fight winning streak. Yeah, a 9 fight winning streak. I think for some reason I thought it was 10. Yeah, 9. I thought it was 10 for some reason. Uh, so yeah, and that's all those fights were in the UFC. So he lost his first fight to Paul Craig, lost his first fight in the UFC to Paul Craig, and then went on a 9 fight winning streak. And his last fight was a TKO win against Anthony Smith. He had that funny series of fights with Ian Cutelaba, where Ian Cutelaba thought he was faking, like he was knocked out standing up, and then had like the flash knockout, and then came back to life, and then they had a direct rematch, and then he knocked him, KO'd him in the next fight. So he has a long history of fights. Beat Volkan Oezdemir and beat Thiago Santos. He's beat some big names. He's got knockout power. Hey, like you would think, because he's a he's a sim from Dagestan, and that Russian. He's one of those Russian fighters. You would think like he's a predominantly a wrestler, but he knocks people out. He's got that knockout power. He has 19 fights, 18 wins, 10 by knockout, 0 by submission, 8 by decision, and 1 loss by submission. So just going off of what I previously said about Jan Blachowicz and his age, and that did he really deserve this fight, and then Megamod Ankalaev and his winning streak in the UFC and his knockout power. I'm going with Megamod Ankalaev, and I mean this fight could go to decision, but honestly, yeah, I mean Jan Blachowicz has knockout power too, but Magomed Ankalaev is like in the prime of his career. He's only 30 years old, so he's like almost 10 years the youngster of Jan Blachowicz. Like they're very similar fighters, honestly. Like he's like the prime version. Like he's like the in your prime version of Jan Blachowicz. Like he's what Jan Blachowicz was like 10 years ago. But like he's like what Jan Blachowicz was if he got into the game like 10 years ago. So it wouldn't surprise me say Jan Magomed Ankalaev like knocked Jan Blachowicz out like in the third or the fourth round. So I know I'm predicting like every single one of these fights to end be like a finish, be like stoppage, but that actually happened in the fight night last Saturday. So it's possible. A lot of fights recently, a lot of cards have had like almost finishes like on every fight the last two fight nights. So it's possible. It's very possible. So in this light heavyweight main event interim bout for the light heavyweight title, I'm picking Magomed Ankalaev to win by knockout in the third or the fourth round. So uh, let's go back over these real quick. So in the first uh, match, I'm going with uh, between the featherweight match, the first bout between Bryce Mitchell and Ilya Tabora. I'm going with Ilya Tabora to win by knockout. And then the second fight between Bryce Mitchell and uh, 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 middleweight match between Darren Till and Dracus Duplessis. I'm going with Dracus Duplessis to also win by knockout as well. And then in the third fight, the catchweight fight, I'm going with the second fight, the third fight between Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Alex Morano. I'm going with Santiago Ponzinibbio to get a knockout. And then in the co-main event between Paddy Pimblin versus Jared Gordon, I'm going with Paddy Pimblin to get a win by rear naked choke. And then in the light heavyweight, the main event, light heavyweight interim title bout between Jan Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev. I'm going with Magomed Ankalaev to get the knockout, win by knockout. So I think that's all I have for you. And with that, can I get a check, please?